Every Friday, like clockwork, Dan would launch his small fishing boat into the serene waters of Creekwood Lake. The world faded away as he basked in the tranquility of the open water, the simple joy of casting a line, the excitement of the catch. This Friday was no different, or so it seemed. As Dan sailed further from the shore, he noticed a second boat hidden in the distant fog. He recognized it immediately. It was that of Old Man Cray, a hermit who lived by the lake. But the figure steering the boat wasn't the hunched, slow-moving silhouette of Old Man Cray. This figure was tall and ominous, with quick, calculated movements. Dan dismissed the feeling of unease that washed over him. After all, Creekwood Lake was open to everyone. He returned to his fishing, allowing the soft lapping of the water against his boat to lull him back into tranquility. Suddenly, a sharp tug at his fishing rod jolted him. The excitement of a potential catch was short-lived as he found a piece of cloth on the hook instead of a fish. It was a black bandana, the kind worn by burglars in old movies. Dan looked around, the unease returning tenfold. The second boat was now closer, and he could see the figure clearly, a man, dressed all in black, staring at him. Dan realized that the bandana on his hook belonged to this man. He was being stalked. He considered rowing back to shore but hesitated, fearing the stranger might follow him home. He decided to confront him instead. But as he approached the other boat, a chilling sight met his eyes. More figures, all dressed in black, were lining the shoreline. They were too many, each one mirroring the silent, menacing watch of the man in the boat. Panic set in. Dan was trapped, too afraid to reach the shore yet too scared to stay in the water. He picked up his oars and began rowing in the opposite direction, hoping to find help on the other side of the lake. He dared not look back, focusing only on the rhythmic sounds of his oars slicing through the water. He rowed until his muscles ached and his breaths came in ragged gasps. The lake seemed to stretch endlessly, the other side appearing just as remote as it did hours ago. His heart pounded in his chest as he heard the soft splash of oars behind him. The man in the boat was following him. Exhausted and scared, Dan stopped rowing and turned around. He was met with a terrifying sight. The figure in the boat had multiplied, more boats appearing out of the fog, each carrying a silent, threatening figure. The stalkers from the shore had joined the pursuit, making their sinister intentions evident. Dan was breathless, frozen with fear as he huddled in his boat. Suddenly, a brilliant idea struck him. He reached into his fishing kit, pulled out a flare gun. He'd kept it for emergencies, never imagining it would serve in a situation like this. Summoning his remaining strength, he aimed the flare gun skyward and fired. A brilliant red light erupted in the dark sky, illuminating the lake and the eerie figures stalking him. Startled by the sudden light, the figures paused their pursuit, giving Dan the precious moments he needed. He plunged his oars back into the water, rowing with a newfound energy. The flare caught the attention of a nearby patrol unit that had been stationed at a ranger's post on the other side of the lake. Within minutes, they arrived at the scene, their patrol lights cutting through the darkness. Seeing them approach, the stalkers dispersed, disappearing into the night. Exhausted and shaken, Dan was rescued and taken to safety. His tale served as a chilling reminder of the horrors that could lurk even in the most serene places. While the stalkers remained faceless shadows, their menacing presence had left a lasting impact. Dan was safe, but his peaceful fishing trips were forever marred by the memory of that terrifying night. His beloved boat now sat unused, serving as a reminder of the night he had been the hunted, rather than the hunter.